What is going on, Six-Pack Abs? It's your nutrition man, Thomas DeLauer, and today I'm talking more about intermittent fasting because the comments have been just completely ridiculously overwhelming. And one of the big questions that's been coming up has been, what should my macronutrients look like while I'm on an intermittent fasting protocol? Well, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna give you the specific breakdown, the specific percentages towards the end of this video, but you know me, I have to back everything up with science. I have to give you the research, and I have to explain some of the benefits and how things work so that everything I say is backed up. Because I don't want you to be going down this path blindly without knowing why things are working or are not working. So first off, the benefits of intermittent fasting, just to recap. I'm gonna give you 3 of them. Number 1, huge increases in human growth hormone during a fasting period. Multiple studies have shown up to a 5-fold increase in your human growth hormone levels during a fasted period. That right then and there proves that we have a strong fat burning effect, a strong muscle building effect, and a strong overall hormonal effect simply coming from the benefits of human growth hormone. Okay, number 2 is an odd one, and it seems obvious, and that's your stomach shrinking. But it's not just about the mechanical shrinking of the stomach. When your stomach shrinks, you're eating smaller meals, which of course is a benefit, but you're having a big increase in leptin sensitivity. Now, back in the old days, we've talked a lot about leptin shred and leptin sensitivity and all that stuff, but leptin is a signaling hormone that tells your brain to rev up the metabolism. If you're more sensitive to leptin, well, do the math, all of a sudden, your body gets to rev up the metabolism when you do eat. So huge benefit there. Number 3, more energy as a byproduct of what's called norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is released by the adrenals and is released by other parts of the body that help you have more energy, but also signal enzymatic actions like AMP kinase that actually have your body start to burn fat in no time at all. All right, so let's get down to the basics. What do you want to break your fast with, and what kind of foods and how many meals should you eat? So there's many ways to skin a cat, all right? If you're fasting, you may be someone that wants to eat 4 meals, 3 meals, 6 meals, but I'm a big fan of 2 meals. And I've come to that conclusion simply by seeing what works for people and what works for me. And it works really well. If you're doing like a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour eating window, having that first meal where you break your fast and then eating 5 or 6 hours later just works really, really well. But when you break your fast, what you want to be careful of is not going overboard on the carbohydrates. I cannot tell you how many people I talk to that at the end of their fast, they have moments of weakness and they just go straight to the carbs. It's like, why do we always go straight to the carbs? You see, the thing is, carbs spike your insulin. And when you're fasting, one of the benefits is your insulin levels are down super low. Those low insulin levels are good because it means when you do finally eat, your body's gonna be sensitive to what you eat. And insulin slows down fat loss. So less insulin means more fat burning. So why in point would you want to break your fast with something that's gonna immediately shut off that process? You're shutting off the fat burning process. A small amount of carbs, like up to maybe 20, 30 grams at the most, is fine. But most people go hog wild and start having 100 or 200 grams of carbs. Don't do that. You want to keep it low fat, low carb, and moderate protein. So you're looking something like a rice cake and a protein shake, or a rice cake and a little bit of chicken. Something like that. We'll break it down a little bit more. That's very, very critical. You also have to remember when you're breaking a fast that your mucosal layer of your gut is extremely sensitive. When you go through a fasting period, your body sort of shuts off the protective layer of the gut lining simply because you're not eating. Why should it waste energy protecting the gut? So the first food that you consume should be very low acid. You don't want to have a lot of tomatoes, you don't want to have a lot of coffee, things like that. And let me back up for 1 second, simply because this is important, because a lot of you might be wondering. Coffee is good when you're fasting, but have your coffee early in your fasting window. Otherwise, it's too hard on your stomach. So when you get up and you're early in your fast, that's when you have your coffee. Okay, but let's talk a little bit more about the foods that you can eat when you break your fast. I talked about rice cakes and protein shake, but some of the foods that are really good are gonna be things like egg whites. Okay, eggs have such an abundant profile of amino acids, it makes it really, really good for you. Now, additionally, yogurt is a great one, Greek yogurt. You have just enough carbohydrates to elicit a small insulin spike, and then you have the right kinds of proteins, but you also have the probiotics that are gonna support the gut bacteria that may have died off a little bit during your fast. And the third food, and the one that I'm a huge fan of, is bone broth. The reason you want to have bone broth is it's super good for healing that gut mucosal layer. So no better food to break a fast with when your gut lining is a little worn down than a food that supports the gut lining like bone broth. Now there's an interesting 2014 study that I want to reference and interject in here really quick with. This found that those that fasted, that did an intermittent fasting style diet, saw a 3 to 8% body fat reduction over a 3 to 24 week period of time. That's significant, but it gets better. What they also found was there was a 4 to 7% decrease in waist circumference, therefore giving us the conclusion that a lot of the weight that is lost is belly fat. We end up actually getting a belly fat reduction by implementing an intermittent fasting style protocol. Pretty darn powerful stuff. Okay, now let me get to the part that you really want here, and that's exactly what your macronutrient ratio should look like. Example number 1, if you are someone that is just trying to stay healthy and stay lean, you're not trying to burn fat anymore, you're just trying to stay healthy and adopt a lifestyle, I highly recommend going with a 30% carbohydrate diet, along with a 40% protein diet, and then a 30% fat intake. So 30 carb, 40 protein, 30 fat. Okay, then if you're someone that's actually trying to burn fat, what I highly recommend you do is go 20% of your overall carbs as your calories. Then I want you to go 50% protein and 30 fat. So all you've done if you're trying to burn fat is you slightly increased your protein and you've backed off your carbs. It's the only thing that's really changing, and all has to do with an insulin response. So pretty basic stuff right then and there. So when you look at that macronutrient breakdown and you factor in some of the foods that I suggested you implement when you're eating, you should have a very good idea of how your meal should look. So let's say you break your fast with some egg whites and some yogurt and maybe a small amount of carbs. Well, by doing the math, if most of your calories need to come from protein and carbs, then you're going to see that later on in the day you need to add more carbs. If you need to have most of your calories come from protein and fats, then you see that you need to add more proteins and fats later in the day. You see, the second meal is dictated by what you eat with that first meal. So you do need to pay attention to your macro count and remember those numbers that I gave you, because that is going to be what sets you up for success, in addition to making sure you're taking care of your gut and making sure that you're taking care of your body in general, so that you can do this for a long period of time. As always, Six Pack Abs, it's Thomas DeLauer, and I will be bringing more science to you here in the very near future. I'll see you soon. Make sure you check out some of the other videos from Johnny, Henry, and myself so that you can keep it locked in here for everything fitness, nutrition, and health related. And as always, make sure you comment and let us know what kind of videos you want to see here on Six Pack Abs. I will see you on SixPackAbs.com.